same thing. So the notation for C dot is C to the derivative of t. Okay, so by definition, it is the difference between Ct plus delta t and Ct. Okay, so in discrete time, you don't have the infinite of delta t. Usually t will be 1. Okay, that's 1 period ahead of 1 period behind. So every time you have the t, Ct plus 1 minus t divided by 1. That's the of this one in discrete time. And in discrete time, we can use notation delta for this expression. Delta is the difference. And then you divide the delta by the absolute value for C, you will get the growth rate. Okay. So by the same reason, here this notation is the growth rate in the limit when the delta t is very small. So, or in other words, the C dot can be interpreted as the growth in absolute values. For example, the GDP grows by like 1,000 billion. Okay, that's the absolute value. And C dot minus C dot divided by C is the growth rate, 1%, 2%. That's the idea. Okay. Okay. Okay, there's one thing I need to clarify. In previous slides, I have explicitly shown how to get a lambda. Okay, lambda is what we define. We define a lambda like this. But for mu, we are always using mu. I haven't defined mu. But the same logic, mu will be defined in a similar way. Let me show you the exact expression. So if you define mu such that lambda t is equal to mu t times this exponential terms, then you will be able to get this maximum principle. So you can have mu here. Mu is related to lambda. Okay. We haven't finished the Ramsey model. We have solved the Ramsey model, but now we can discuss what the Ramsey model looks like. So just like before, we first need to think about the steady state equilibrium. In this model, there is population growth, but no technology growth. Okay, we define all the variables as the consumption per capita, the rate, the asset per capita. So the consumption per capita or per person will be constant in a steady state. That's the definition of the steady state. If this one is true, then we will be able to derive the steady state. Take a look at the first equation. If C dot is 0, then the left-hand side will be 0, and the right-hand side will be 0. This fraction ratio is some non-zero stuff. We know that. And then, why is this non-zero? Because usually we will have the utility function strictly increasing. So the first order derivative will be always positive. And we have the utility function strictly concave. So the second order derivative will always be negative. So this term here will always be positive if you include the negative sign outside. Then if the left-hand side is 0, the right-hand side, this apprentices have to be 0. Now we can solve for the steady state k, which is given by this equation. And given this k level, The next thing is to solve for steady state consumption. Let's go back to the law of motion for capital. You have K dot here. In a steady state, the capital per person should not grow. So the left hand side should be 0, and the right hand side should be 0. We have solved for K star, so we can solve for C star from this equation. This is why we have this here. And then saving rate. In a steady state, capital per person is no longer accumulating. So the saving for the household are exactly identical to depreciation. You save something and capital depreciate. These two terms cancel out. And in the end, you will always have the capital stock unchanged. So the depreciation of capital can be treated as the saving you have for each moment. And the denominator is how much you produce. Right? So depreciation or the saving divided by how much you produce will be the saving rate. Now we have the whole expressions for consumption, capital, and saving rate in the steady state. There's one interesting phenomenon here. We can see that the population growth does not affect the capital per capita or capital per person. Twisted. So capital per person or saving rate. Okay. N does not show up. N only shows up for the expression of C star. In other words, if one economy, according to the Ramsey model, if one economy has higher speed of population growth, the steady state capital stock for each person, or the steady state saving rate for each household will not change. The population growth will have some effects on the economy by affecting consumption. So if the population growth rate is faster, then people are consuming less on average. Because you have more and more babies, you have to spread out your assets to them. That's the equation. So it seems to be contradictory to the one-child policy. So the one-child policy says that we have too many children, so we want to have less and improve the growth. But according to Ramsey model, it doesn't. It only improves the consumption. It does not improve the output level. But this does not mean that the one-child policy has nothing to do with the growth. It just says that from the Ramsey model, we cannot explain why the government is using one-child policy. Maybe they have another model in mind. Maybe they have no model. So at least in Ramsey model, one-child policy plays no role in output growth. That's the one thing. And another one is about the steady state saving rate. We can take a look at the first equation. If the depreciation rate delta is larger, the left-hand side is a decreasing function because we have a diminishing return to capital. Right? So if delta is larger, then the K star is smaller. That means if capital is depreciating faster, then the steady state capital stock will be smaller. It's intuitively straightforward, right? Because you cannot maintain the high level of capital. However, here, when the delta is larger, if you don't take the effects on K into account, then higher delta means higher S, because you have to save more to compensate for your loss in capital depreciation in order to keep the capital stock constant. So as a result, we will have two forces here. One is that delta decrease K star. The other one, delta increase S star. So these two forces work in opposite directions. The numerator k star, of course, increases faster than the denominator because the denominator has diminishing returns. Right? The numerator has constant returns. So the whole expression is hard to say whether higher delta implies higher saving rate or lower saving rate. Now the question is, how does delta affect the steady state saving rate? This is the bonus question. Think about that and email me before 12 o'clock. Okay. So and about the bonus question, I want to say something more about the previous one. Maybe I didn't make it clear. I should write it down here. Where? In the whole process to solve the model, I haven't shown anything about the market equilibrium, but we have solved the model successfully. The question is, where are these market equilibrium conditions implicitly assumed in the process of solving the model? Okay. Find the place where the market equilibrium conditions are implicitly assumed. We just didn't say this, but we have assumed it. Let's move on. So after steady state, now we can think about the transitional dynamics. Let's go back to the solution of the model. The solution to the model can be described by the following conditions. We have the law of motion for state variable capital. We have the optimal consumption equations. We also have the initial state K0. We also have the terminal conditions, which is transversality condition for capital. Okay. So after we have all these four conditions, we can completely pin down the dynamic path of the Ramsey model in equilibrium. I noticed that some of you have registered this paper. I'm glad to see that before the end of the class. So this paper is a very short paper. It's only 8 pages, 8 or 9 pages. So this paper is called Japanese saving rate. It tries to explain why the Japanese saving rate is falling across time by using the TFP time series. And the author, one of the authors, is a Chinese economist. I just invited this person to our department in December. So that reminded me of this paper. Okay. So dynamics. We use these 4 conditions, and more importantly, the first two conditions to think about the dynamics. This is the phase diagram. Maybe you have seen this in your math. Let's review it. We have K in the horizontal direction and C in the vertical direction. And we want to see how these two variables move. If you want to see the direction of move, it's better to first find the situation in which these two variables are not moving. So if C is not moving, then we have C dot equal to 0. Then we have K must be equal to some level. So that corresponds to this vertical line. You have some K star in which C does not move. And if you want to have K not moving, then this one is 0. You must have some connection between C and K. Okay. This expression can be rearranged. Then Ct is equal to fkt minus something. The left-hand side will be Ct, the right-hand side will be some diminishing return functions. So when k is 0, this part is 0. You start from 0. So we have a curve like this. It's increasing in the very beginning because this one increases very fast when k is very small. According to another condition, the slope should be infinite when k is close to when k is 0. So you have this line goes up and then it goes down and across the horizontal line. Now, we know that along this vertical line and this curve, along the vertical line, C does not change. Along this curve, K does not change. Now we can divide the whole space into 4 parts. The left top, the right top, left bottom, right bottom. And we can think about how these variables are moving in these 2 areas. Let's think about the left top area. In the left top area, K is smaller than the steady state, so that you K smaller here, so that this term is larger. Okay, because this one is positive, so the left hand side will be larger, which means on the left hand side consumption should go up. But the same reason, the right hand side consumption goes down. So you have consumption goes up, consumption goes down. And then we can think about this line. In this line, corresponds to this equation. If consumption is too large, then capital goes down. Consumption too small, capital goes up. So here, above this curve, consumption consumption too large, capital goes down. So above this curve, consumption is too large, so capital goes down. Yeah, we move to the left. And below this curve, consumption is insufficient, so the capital is moving up to the right. Now we have the moving direction for these 4 areas of this group. It's obvious that if you are here or here, you are moving to the opposite direction of the steady state point. This is the point in which C and K do not move. If you are here and here, you are moving away. So if you want to move towards the steady state, then you have to be here or there. However, you cannot start with too much consumption or too little consumption. This curve here is the curve that we derive using this equation and this equation. Okay. So, for example, here we have the consumption growing up at some speed. Think about a situation in which you have exactly the right consumption at an initial point, then you could converge to the steady state if you have that level. But if you have slightly larger consumption, because the consumption is growing up, okay, if your initial level is too up, the consumption level, the deviation from the steady state may be larger and larger. So that's the reason why we have this path go outside. And also if you start with very low level of consumption, you also go outside. And in order to find the path in which you exactly have the consumption path converging or the capital path converging to the steady state, we have to use the transversality condition. This condition imposes that you cannot have the capital stock going to like infinitely negative or infinitely positive. So this condition prevents you take a look at this curve. Either your capital goes to negative in this direction, or your capital becomes very large to the right. So the transversality condition prevents this case and this case from happening. So in the end, if the transversality condition is satisfied, you have to be exactly along this path converging to the steady state. That's the role of the transversality condition. And the initial condition for K0 tells you where you start with for K. And transversality condition tells you which C you have to choose in the very beginning in order to make sure this path converge to steady state. Okay. So we call this the saddle path equilibrium. Let me make it short in a summary. So these moving curves are driven by the law of motion of K and C, but the moving curve may not converge to steady state. And the transversality condition tells you that you have to be exactly on this curve converging to the steady state. Okay. So all these four conditions play a role in the curve here, transitional dynamics. Okay. Let's go to the two-sector model. Now we have finished the most tough part. Now it's easier. Neither the Solow model nor the Rensen model explains why there is sustainable long-run growth. Models in which technology involves the result of funding workers' decisions are most attractive in these regards. We want to model the technology progress, but not in this way. In this way, we want to show that even in a model without technology progress, we can still have some growth. Sustainable growth. The first example is the AK model. However, the basic AK model that we show in the Solow model is not so good, because in that model, labor plays no role. All incomes are paid to capital owners. It's not the same to the reality. In reality, the capital owners, the labor owners both own some shares, constant shares, relative constant shares of the GDPs. We want to have a model like that, but also showing something about the sustainable growth. That is the two-sector AK model. The two-sector is like this. We have the sector one producing consumption goods. We have a Cobb-Douglas production technology. So the subscription C denotes consumption goods. And we have the second sector to produce investment goods. In this sector, we have the linear technology, so that we may be able to show something similar to AK model. The second sector is used for sustainable growth. The first sector is used to have some capital share and labor share. In market clearing condition, it is like this. So this is L, C, KC, and these are the capital and labor demand from this firm side. This is, has to be equal to the capital supply of the household economy, and labor is the same. And we use kappa to denote the share of capital in the second sector. Compare with the total capital, how much percentage they has in the capital producers. Now, think about the connection between these two sectors. Both sectors have some returns to capital, right? If you invest, if you want to think about giving capitals to each one of these sectors, it must be in the equilibrium. It must be the case that your capital given to either one will give you the same return. Otherwise, if one sector has high returns on capital, then this sector will continue attracting more capital. That will not be an equilibrium. So because of that, we will have this condition. The left-hand side is the capital, is the return, marginal return of capital in the investment sector, investment goods sector. We have PI here to denote the price of investment goods, because everything is measured in market value. So you have some, this is production function. If you have more capital, of course you can produce some investment goods, but the market market value for investment goods is the investment goods times some PI. In the one sector model, we do not have to think about it because all the prices for final goods are normalized to one. And here we have two sectors, and two sectors may have different prices, so we have to define it explicitly here. And the right-hand side is the first order derivative with respect to K through this technology. That will be the marginal return of capital to the consumption goods sector. Okay, and also it has to be multiplied by consumption goods price. Has to be identical. Well, we have two free prices. Let's normalize the price by choosing consumption goods as a numerator and impose the price to be 1. So all the market value of the investment goods are in terms of consumption goods. So now we can think about the balanced growth path. In the first equation, PC is constant now, and PI is a variable changing across time, and K is a variable changing across time. And I should say that the labor is constant. Sorry. Now, suppose we have a constant labor here in the model, no labor growth. Then, the growth rate of PI is driven by the growth rate of KI. Because KI has a power of 1 minus alpha. If you do some algebra, the growth rate of PI will be the growth rate of KI times some coefficient like this. And we are thinking about the balanced growth path. So in the balanced growth path, we have some growth rate of path, which is constant under GK here. The second, now we think about the interest rates in terms of investment goods for the investment goods sector. So we have we have the gross return rate, which is this one, but also the capital depreciation. So the interest rate will be the gross one subtracting the depreciation. This is the interest rate in terms of investment good. It pays out in terms of investment good. So, in equilibrium in which these two sectors will give you the same net return rate, you will have these conditions. Okay, what does this mean? This RI divided by PI is the net return rate in investment goods, but you divide it by PI such that it's comparable to the return in the consumption sector. And also think about the return payouts. So the return is in the forms of the goods produced in that sector. Consumption goods in consumption sector, and investment goods in investment sector. But the market value for consumption good is also, an investment good may potentially change. So that means you have to take that into account. Think about the stock. When you think about the stock return, on the one hand, the stock pays you some dividend like this. On the other hand, the value of the stock, the price of the stock goes up or down. So you have to take both of that into account. So the no arbitrage condition shows you that the left-hand side should be equal to the right-hand side. And we have numerator for consumption here, so this one has to be 0. Consumption price is 1. And this one we have to write that in the balanced growth path. Now we can find the net return rates for consumption goods through this equation. Okay. So this one is given by the first equation, A minus delta. This one is 0, and this one is here. And in the balanced growth path, this one, the last term, is equal to a constant number. So now we have the net return rate in terms of consumption goods. And as a household, when the household is making the consumption saving decision as before, we just need to replace the net return rate